2022 has been like a relaxed year. Like, okay, we can just take a break, take a breath, recalibrate. But 2023, the energy picks up. It will get a stronger energy for you to feel like motivated. Really easy New Year's this year to make decisions and follow through. First 6 months of 2023, ask yourself in your New Year's resolution, what can I do to up my energy? Because you'll be supported by Jupiter and Aries.
Hey, this is Chad Namiro.
And I'm Kelley Namiro. Welcome to the Balancing Chaos podcast,
A lifestyle podcast where we will interview guests about wellness, business, and just about everything in between.
Our goal is to help you develop a lifestyle that promotes health, wholeness, and success. Through our conversations, we hope to inspire you to live a beautiful, full, and joyful life as you navigate balancing the chaos.
We hope you enjoy.
When Debra Silverman was just 20 years old, she met an astrologer who really changed her life. She had officially been introduced into the world of astrology, and it was then that she had decided that this was her life's purpose. Debra went to study the mind and body, getting a degree in psychology. And over the past 40 years, she has used her professional experience in a private practice that she has to help thousands of individuals with their emotional health and using the wisdom of the stars and the four elements: water, air, earth, and fire. She works with families, individuals, and couples, and she stands out in this sea of therapists and coaches. There are so many of us out there because of the way that she incorporates astrology in a really digestible way. There's really no one size fits all approach, but Debra has developed a unique psychological and spiritual model that combines her expertise in astrology and her extensive education in psychology to help people going through major life changes, and especially people in crisis. So with all of that said, welcome to the show, Debra. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
So before we start talking about our charts, because we want to dive into that today with you, let's talk a little bit about astrology and where it came from. And like, do you know where did it first start? Talk to us a little bit about that.
It's just 4,000 years old. It's so it's so interesting that every magazine across time, and even my grandmother knew what sign she was. That this conversation of the sun signs and where they are when you were born has never left the zeitgeist. It's been there in England. They really, the kings and the queens, all the time and throughout history, and there's written word. You can see actually written astrology hieroglyphics that were brought to us through Egypt. So there, it's past the test of time. The dilemma is it's been put in the back room. Like somewhere in the story, religion came in and said, no, 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 no. You can't know yourself. You have to come through us. You can't start to understand how to accept differences. You've got to stay in a controlled environment. So astrology promotes individual thinking. It's distinctly about diversity.
Right.
How is everybody different? And how do we support? How do we support? Yeah, you would, because your chart's all about that. How do we support people to be weird or non-traditional without feeling threatened by them becoming independent thinkers? So my whole life's work is literally giving someone permission slips to say, you are weird. And by the way, you're supposed to be weird. And until it's like with Chad, he's so earth. He's so grounded. He's so detailed. He's analyzed. Look at his face.
My God,
he's analyzing everything's analyzed. So if I said to him, loosen yourself up and just believe, he'd be like, no, like you can't tell someone who's a double Virgo to try to get themselves to be loosey-goosey because they're built for control and organization. And then the opposite is with Kelley. You can't say to her, I want you to act normal and be straight and follow the rules. She's like, I just sneak out when no one's looking. I can't follow. So you guys are opposite in many ways, but the point of astrology and its timeless nature is across all time. I just think it's so interesting that we disregarded indigenous people who taught us wisdom, all the elders that have come across time to show us what it is to live in community and how to honor the earth and how to follow the seasons. And we have thrown that away, and we threw away astrology. However, astrology is on the rampage. It is back. You look on Instagram and you look on YouTube, and they are everywhere. So to your point about being in the sea of therapists and healers and astrologers, where I stand out is I'm very blunt, which, is kind of like, it was a problem when I was younger because I would say shit. And then like And then I would get in trouble. And then people would whisper to me, I was thinking it, but I just didn't want to say it. And I was like, oh, that's obviously my job. So I've been the person that speaks up, and that's been in my chart. I am the one that brought back astrology. It was an old science, ancient, that got left behind. And now I have thousands and thousands of students that I've taught all over the world.
Wow.
And I've watched them they've fallen in love with those good friends of mine.
I love that. I think that you couldn't have described Chad and I more perfectly.
Pretty on point. Does this connection that exists between the stars and humans apply to the animal kingdom as well, or all creatures on Earth, or is it really?
Yes, it definitely, animals are affected by the sun sign. We have in astrology, there's 10 planets, and one of them describes, for example, how you'll communicate, how you'll talk. Well, that doesn't relate to the dog, but it does describe personality. So you can use the sun sign of an animal and very quickly be able to see the stars affect everything. The water on the planet, the tides go up. The farmer's almanac is all based on the moon. We are 98% water. Why would we not be affected by this magnetic force field? And how arrogant of us to think that we're so special, that we stand apart from the intergalactic, the cosmos. We have these funny little things called egos that your dog doesn't have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that ego is the single interruption and I'm going to describe, when I look at your charts, I can describe your ego. It just becomes very loud. And the ego is so cute. I've changed it from being annoying to being cute. And in the case with Chad, he has so much earth in his chart. You're so grounded, Chad. Everything has to make money and be practical and organized. And if it doesn't make money, you're like, what are we doing? This is the waste of my time. That's earth. Those are earth people, and they can't tolerate mundane, stupid behaviors of people. Airheads would make you lose your mind. Like, how dare they not show up when they say they will?
There's no better. Like, we literally just had a conversation, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, about like doing something, and it not making money and it being a waste of time. So like, this is so dead on. It's like, but so perfect.
Exactly. And this is why I love astrology, because the men who don't believe in it, the name I'm doing I'm writing a new book, and my podcast is called same name, the I Don't Believe in Astrology podcast. So you don't have to believe in it. Like, Chad, if I didn't nail you today, you wouldn't believe in it. But if I can speak straight to, like, let's talk about your chart, Kelley. She has this incredible open-mindedness that is so willing to think about the future and to open up to all kinds of possibilities and be so nosy, like constantly curious about the weirdest. He's like, wait a minute, does it grow corn? How long will this take? How much money is this going to make? She's like, I don't care. I'm fascinated.
Yeah, that is dead on. I think that is really something that would be, because like, I feel like what you said is so perfect, and that he wouldn't necessarily be the believer, especially because he is so practical. So this is like such a perfect way to ease him into it. And what I think is also really great is when I've had readings done before, certain astrologists will be like, oh, well, your Venus conjunct Mars. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't know.
I know.
You're just telling me
English.
Like, he's practical. He wants to make money. Like, this is your husband. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes more sense.
And this is what I'm known for. I speak English. Because the problem with astrology, if you watch the videos, if you listen to all they're so abstract. It would drive you, Chad, you would hate it. After 2 minutes, you'd be like, let's go. Yeah. Whereas you would listen, Kelley would listen and then go, what did they say? I speak English, and my whole school is built around how does astrology actually heal people? It's one thing to talk all day and have podcasts that are so, it's another thing to say, what is it about your personality that bugs you? And if we ask Chad, he'd give us a list. Because he analyzes himself. He has all the analytical list of what he should be doing. Its major word is should.
Yeah.
And then you're opposite, Kelley. You're like, it's okay. We're okay. Let's just enjoy ourselves. So the quality of distinguishing the personality types and letting them be acceptable, that's the healing. Mm-hmm. Like you can analyze Chad all you want, but at some point you're going to have to learn how to turn off your internal dialogue that criticizes.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for telling him that, Debra. Thank you. That's going to make a huge shift in our marriage.
It's a blessing and a curse, but yeah, it does have some downsides.
So you mentioned your school, and like, having people. Do you teach people to become teachers like you as well?
In our school, there's 3 levels. The first level is just a entrance level 1, we call it, and you study your own chart with the intention of answering the question, who am I? What's my purpose? What's my shadow? It's a big conversation. What's my sabotager? The second level is where you actually learn the nuts and the bolts, like how do you do a reading? And then when we finish the second level, you actually can do a reading and pay yourself back. By the end of, they're 6 weeks long. By the end, there's only 10 people in each classroom. It's very small and intimate. So you were studying your chart in level 1. And level 2, you're figuring out how do you actually give a reading. And then in level 3, you come and be with me. It rhymes. You come and be with me, and you do a chart in front of me. And now I have trained professional astrologers who are either coaches or they're therapists or they're interested in yoga, and they complement their work by being able to speak to people that's very concrete and practical, and you get paid a lot more because you've got the secret in your back pocket.
That's great. That's really cool. So
there you go.
So
now we're talking.
3 levels.
Now we're talking.
3 levels takes how long if you wanted to do this?
If you wanted to get it, like actually become an astrologer professionally, it would take you 3 months. It would cost about $7,000, the whole thing, 6 or 7, and you would be allowed at the end to go ahead and start charging up to $200 an hour. Yeah. So it's a very high skill set you're learning. And the funnest part for me is watching women who secretly loved astrology or they love psychology, but they didn't know how to go back to school and get a degree. And then like you would Chad, they make money.
Yeah. That's awesome.
They make a lot of money.
Very cool.
Is the field of astrology still being innovated on at a pretty high degree?
It's a $1 billion industry. It is everywhere. It's like, remember when yoga first came to the world? I do, because I'm old. And it was just this cute little stupid thing where people would go in their rooms and they would put their towels down. Then it became the studios. Then it became the mats. Then it became these teaching trainers. Then it became $1 billion. And then it fell during COVID. Yoga has really slid. Well, astrology is the new yoga. It's now just beginning. People are starting to take the classes because you have clients everywhere all over the world. On a Zoom call, you can give a reading. So there's no limitation to being an astrologer now. And yes, it's on the upswing.
Okay.
So like I mentioned, for me, you know, in the past when I've had readings done, there were like these really intense words to describe my chart, like super ethereal. And listening to your podcast and listening to you talk, you don't do that. And so for somebody out there who wants to understand, you know, the easiest way to read their chart, like their sun, moon, rising, that's like what really what I know about myself. Like I am Pisces sun, I think,
Moon in Aquarius.
I thought it was Scorpio, and then Capricorn.
You're so
right?
cute. Pisces. Your sun isn't. That's right. Your sun is in Pisces. Your moon's in Capricorn, but you've got Aquarius, Mercury, and then your Scorpio rising.
Scorpio rising. So,
what does this all mean?
Let's break it down for everybody. What is the sun?
Virgo? Mr. Virgo, can you make sense out of this already? Okay, so there's three.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's you can see on my right there. There's 3 pillars. The sun is your ego, your personality. So you're a Pisces and he's a Virgo. By the way, they're exactly opposite. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did know that. Yeah.
You're 108. You're born exactly opposite. So the Pisces is the dreamer. That's your ego. She's the mystical, magical tour, and he's a Virgo, the opposite. He's practical, and he's making his list. The Pisces is a little bit messy, and she can't remember where she puts things. The Virgo has a list of everything. So that's an opposition. Then the moon is a second category. That's the emotional. Think about nighttime. In the night, the moon comes up, we go to sleep, and it affects our inner world, our emotional world, our dream time. So your moon being in Capricorn, which is very compatible with your husband, makes you very solid. Like you're stable, and you don't like it either when people aren't responsible. You're a hard worker.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Very hard worker.
Yes. And so the moon describes your emotional temperament. I'm going to see where Chad's moon is. And that would be, do we know the answer to that question?
I don't know the answer to that question.
His moon's in Capricorn. You both have moon in Capricorn. Ding, 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 ding. So you both have moon in the same spot. So in the month, the moon moves very quickly. It's the fastest moving planet. And in the month, the moon goes through all 12 signs. You were both born at the same, this is very compatible. Whenever there's a man and a woman with the same influence, you automatically, when he gets all caught up in business and he starts getting gold, you're like, I understand, honey.
Yeah.
Rather than making him wrong, it resonates with you.
Yeah.
So you both, the moon is your emotional temperature, your inner world, and you've got it in Capricorn, which is a little cut off, to tell the truth. They're not very emotional. They're all about business. They're all about utilitarianism, practicality, and really wanting people to be reasonable. Like both of you can't stand when people get all stupid. You're like, no, calm down. That's moon and Capricorn. Your emotional body is Earth, and it wants everyone to act normal.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like, do the right thing. And then the rising sign, which is the third category that no one ever teaches this way. But why is it called the rising sign? Because you're rising into it. It's your soul. The rising sign is your higher self. So for you, Kelley, having it in Scorpio, that means that your soul is very intense. Like you are someone that's a detective, and you sneak into people's psychology, and you start, like sniffing and watching them and staring at them. Like you get caught in wanting to heal them. So it's one of your biggest,
so
one of your big, whereas he, because Chad is both sun, his personality, his ego was Virgo, his moon was Capricorn, which is double Earth. He's a very grounded double Earth person. Virgo's Earth, his sun sign was Earth, his moon is Earth, and now his rising sign is also Virgo. So he's triple Earth. And that explains why practicality and money and organization is everything for him. Yeah. Whereas you have a combination of being Pisces water, I'm dreamy and I'm so sensitive, and my rising sign Scorpio, so now I want to heal them and go into their psyche, and I'm double water.
Yeah.
And then that moon in Capricorn goes, and wait a minute, everybody back up. We got to just make sure this is practical. Chad, can you help me?
I asked for his help a lot. Isn't that rising sign too how people see you?
That's a ridiculous point of view. Why is it? It's not. The answer is no. And it's unfortunate that all over the books they talk about it, but in a spiritual, why is it called the ascendant?
Yeah.
Because you're rising into it. So it's your higher self. It's interesting for Chad because both his ego and his soul are the same. He's a double Virgo. So for you, I love that face you're making. So for you, the double Virgo is like, your whole life is like this. Like, I cannot figure this place out. My soul wants to analyze it. My personality wants to analyze it. My ego wants to analyze it. And if I can't figure it out, I'm just going to stay the course, make another list, and ask some more questions.
What's the foundation for all this? Is it the year you're born, the month you're born, the exact time you're born?
Yep.
All the above?
And the place. And the place.
And the place. Interesting. Okay.
So it's literally like you're seeing above. It is literally a photograph of where were the planets at the moment of your birth. So the city, the time, and the date. And it's unfortunate that I love the name of my podcast is the I Don't Believe in Astrology podcast, because I bet, Chad, you didn't believe in it. So my job this life is to help people breathe into it and go, oh my God, that was so true.
I'm a mystic for all intents and purposes. I believe in a higher power, and I believe there are forces, far beyond our understanding. I didn't necessarily subscribe to the fact that like I am the way I am because of when I was born, and so that's true.
Yeah.
But I'm not too like dismissive. I'm always
open,
curious. Yeah, truthfully.
Yes, curiosity is one of your specialties. You live by the words I analyze.
Yeah. Yeah, show me the data and then I'll believe it. That's pretty much how it works.
So you told us about Kelley's double water, Chad's triple earth, and your book that you wrote is all about the elements. It's about, air, fire, earth, and water. And we can be missing one of those things in our chart. Is that right? Or is everybody missing one of those things in their chart?
That's why the name of the book is The Missing Element.
Right. So tell us about that and explain the elements and how do we know what we're missing?
So some people like you, it's so great you guys are double. So you're double water. Water people are super emotional. They're very compassionate. They cry at the drop of a hat because it's water. They feel for people, for animals. They really care about younger people. They have a compulsion to want to be alone because they get so overstimulated. They just need quiet every once in a while to be in their own privacy. So they're not very social, and they can have a hard time finding words. It's not true of you, Kelley, but water people can be very introverted.
Okay.
Then the next category is air, which we call airheads. And they talk all the time. You're not going to guess which one I am. And they talk all the time and they forget their name and they forget where they were going and they can't remember things. And they have this incredible fascination with all things social media and reading and writing. And they're just intellectuals. So their minds, airheads, are always picking up information, but sometimes they get a little bit distracted.
What are the signs that are air?
So water is Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And air is Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. And you don't have to, if I'm just in the book, you don't have to know any astrology. The missing element has no astrology in the book. I'm just describing, because the elements is the American Indians always honored the 4 directions. The Egyptians, all of astrology is based on the 4 elements. In the Hawaiian culture where I live, everything is the 4 elements. So this is the ancient doorway that this book, The Missing Element, is all about. The 3rd element, Earth. Welcome to Chad. Grounded, numbers, spreadsheets, Excel, insurance, practical, how are the tires, analyzing, taxes, everything to do with the practical world. They go to Costco and they buy boxes of Windex. I mean, they get off on like buying things that are going to clean or getting things on sale. It's like an Earth dream. Like, I bought the best thing and I got a deal. It made them feel good. So that's the Earth people. They're practical and they're grounded and they're sustaining a world that requires predictability. And then the last category is fire. Also, Earth is Taurus, Virgo, and Cap. And the last category is fire. And these are the people that get so excited. They're like little kids, like, oh my God, we're going to go play what? We're going to go to the drugstore? Like, everything to them is so stupid and so exciting. I have a little bit of this. They work out all the time. They're blunt. They're honest. They say they have no control. Fire. It runs hot. There's no lukewarm. So everything is either dramatic or miserable. Not medium. There's no lukewarm with fire. So whereas water's like, shh, and you just calm down. And air is like, oh, I'm so interested. What triggered you? And the earth person's like, I have no time for this. Okay, I'm busy. This is a ridiculous conversation. Let's get back to work. And the fire's like, okay, let's go back to play. So it's 4 different personality types, but you have all 4 of them in you.
Okay.
Unless one is missing.
Right.
So when you look at the chart, I can quickly see, and not everyone has something missing. However, in the case of Kelley, she has no fire. So the get up and go, the motivation, the desire to push, to be bossy, to step over people is not your style. You're like, can we just calm down? Is that true? Not so true.
I feel like I can. I'm definitely only bossy with Chad. Definitely not bossy like with the people I work with. Like, that is not me.
We'll ask them.
Okay, I'm going to take it back. You're controlling. There's a difference between bossy and controlling.
Yes.
You have to have control.
Yes.
She has to have control over everything. She does not like unsurprises, and she doesn't like when things are unpredictable. She's got to be in charge.
Well, yeah,
but that's different than standing in front of the room and being the center of attention and wanting to take over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Do you do that?
You like me in the center of attention?
I think so.
I don't think she aspires to take over, though. That's probably not true.
But I knew that I had 6 houses in Capricorn. So
okay, what did you just say?
6 of my houses are Capricorn.
What's that house?
That is the funniest thing I've heard all day. I'm going to write it down. I have 6 houses in Capricorn. I just love them, people. This is what I love. They talk astrology, and my Mercury and
You're
Mars.
Like, what are you talking about?
There is no such thing. You cannot have 6 houses. There's you can have 6 planets.
Okay, that's what it is.
You don't own any real estate.
I don't know.
You don't own any real estate. That's hysterical. Yes, so in Kelley's chart, she has no fire, but that doesn't mean you don't have fire. So to your point, it could mean that God said, don't give her any more fire. She's so excitable. She's so enthusiastic. She said, we're not. But in Chad's chart, he has no air. So talking in, superficial conversations or talking about things that don't have weight or people that are airheads would drive him crazy.
He is nailing you.
Yeah, that's true.
He is literally nailing you. I had my hairdresser over the other day to do my hair, and we're like sitting there just talking about random stuff, and he is over there like in the corner silent, like not talking. And afterwards I was like, why didn't you say anything? It's like, I hate superficial conversation.
That's called no air in your chart. You got it.
This is so good.
So this is the missing. So what we're describing here is the missing element, and
Right.
not everyone has a missing element. And the point of the exercise is to study the book, take the personality test in the book,
Yep.
figure out what your strength is, cultivate your strength, and then find out your missing element.
Okay.
What's interesting is we both have a deep affinity for what you mentioned in terms of her really having a love for water and the ocean and the beach, whereas I'm much more about the earth. Like
He
I
loves
go
the mountains.
backpacking.
Mhm.
I like sleeping on the ground. I actually probably have a bit deeper of an affinity for animals, but that might have been predicated by how I grew up and interacted with my mom and that kind of thing. But that's very accurate in terms of what we love and gear towards in nature.
And this is the beauty of learning this material, because you can see how you would appreciate, like, okay, she's water and he's earth, and then you blend, and that's what relationships are all about, right? Dancing with the other, letting them have their nature, especially with children. My favorite thing is doing readings for children.
My biggest takeaway is that she's an airhead.
I don't think she's an airhead. Is she an airhead?
No, I'm kidding.
I'm not.
Sometimes she's careless.
No, like what you said is true. Like I'll lose stuff a lot. Like, or I'll like forget passwords to stuff. Like that kind of stuff is like so dead on me.
Yeah.
That is error. That is 100% error. And this is what you learn in the school, and it's what you learn from reading the book. So
yeah. So people who want to know more about like their chart, their missing element, the book and the school is where they should.
The first step is the book. The book is like the low-hanging fruit, because you don't need to know any astrology, but you definitely get to know yourself. That book is all about, my life's work is turning on the observer, like watching yourself. Like, how come I do that? Like, this is an analytical question. But if everyone could neutralize, I call it Switzerland, and turn on your observer right after you had a fight, right after you got upset, right after you hurt your feelings, you could turn your observer on and go, huh.
Self-awareness.
Really, it's another word for self-awareness.
Yes, I love that.
So we've talked about like astrology on the individualized level a lot.
You want to know about our relationship as a couple?
No, I want to know about what's happening in the world.
Well, let's go into.
Oh my God, I love that so much. No, we're not doing you as a couple. We're not doing you as a couple. We're done with that now. Thank you so much. We can't dwell. We have exactly, just so you know, we got 20 minutes left. And yes, I did you and we did you individually. And if you want a reading, come have a reading. And if you think about what I said, the fact that he's earth and you're water, and you've got the bit of the airhead and he has no air, you will realize the dynamics in the relationship and how to make room for him to not talk, and how to make room for her to be a bit of an airhead. And that is relationship.
Yeah.
Permission slips.
I think we'll definitely come and get a reading with you, because I'm really interested. Yeah. Like one of the things that happened with us, and I think some of our listeners probably know this, is that we were together when we were really young. We broke up for a while. We got back together when like probably no one, including ourselves, ever thought that would happen. And I'm just curious to know, like, around, you know, if like stuff like that is like written in the stars, or like, are you like, are we in charge of our own fate? Are we in charge of our own destiny? But we can definitely talk to you offline.
That is so, no, but that's a different question. That's a very, very important question. It's less about you guys. That's a universal question. How much free will is there compared to what's going on with the stars? So there is no way.
Greatest question.
It's life's greatest question, but it's so obvious by its answer, because you just use the reflection of reality to give you your clue. So you meet as children, that was destined. So the stars were in order that you two as soulmates were going to come together. Then you go through the challenge of breaking up, and then someone knocked on someone's shoulder and said, just go back together. That's your soul. Yeah, that was your soul. And that was your soul giving you a directive about your destiny. Now, he had a vote, and there was a question mark of what would the person say, but there's always a way to interrupt what destiny would have in mind, or to enhance it and turn yourselves into a power couple working like you are. So there's a decision, but clearly somebody went onto your shoulder and said, hey, Kelley, and you listened. So those are called fated. I always say Cupid has no eyesight. She just pulls the thing back, and she certainly doesn't know astrology, but you guys are very compatible. Your charts are very compatible. You both have Moon in Capricorn.
Even though it's like opposites attract kind of a thing.
Exactly.
What do they say about someone with a few divorces that finds their soulmate in the fourth marriage?
It's a path. There's nothing wrong with divorce. In astrology, back to my point about the observer, Switzerland, There's no judgment call. Every single person you know is effed up. There's nobody on this planet that doesn't have some story where their heart was broken, where their mind doesn't stop making noise, where anxiety riddles their nervous system, where depression, everybody has something. That's the deal. When you come here and they get to the front gate and they say, would you like to go to Earth? The first thing they say is, are you crazy? Yeah. And you have to say yes to get in.
Hey fam, if you are listening here, then you may be someone who deals with chronic overwhelm, bloating, anxiety, and weight you can't lose, maybe hair loss or skin conditions. If one of those things rings true for you, the Wellness by Kelley Health and Hormones course is available to help you get to the root cause and solve the issue in a way that's sustainable and gives you your lifestyle with lasting results. No more diets or quick fixes, but real health and vitality for the long run. My course runs through everything from what labs to test for to what protocols to implement given what's off in your blood work. We cover a variety of hormonal imbalances and how to heal them, plus the mindset work that you'll have to do to change your habits. If you're ready for an environment where you can learn the tools and truly heal to feel your best, most aligned, light, confident version of you, then this course is for you. If you're feeling called to join the WBK Health and Hormones course, head to the link in the show notes to learn more, where you'll get my membership included with your purchase.
You talk about on your podcast, like everyone has a lesson that they are here to learn. Does your chart tell you what the lesson is? Like, what's your lesson, for example?
About being honest, about being comfortable with being creating reaction in my wake. That sometimes people get mad at me. It took me so many years. I did a session for Madonna many years ago, and I really learned from her, because clearly she is she's fire. And I have a lot of fire. We're actually born in the same state, only a year apart. But she creates reaction wherever she goes. And when I saw the chart and I saw her behavior and I saw how it affected her, I was like, me too, me too. And that's when I realized, oh, number one, I have to work out every day. That's what she taught me. It was such a helpful session for me, because when you have this much chi and people react, they get both attracted to fire and repelled by fire. You come really close up to the fire, then it's so hot, you back up completely. And so I had to learn. That was my life lesson. It's okay that people come in, they warm up, and then they get to a certain point, they're like, woohoo, they got to go. And that's not true of everyone. Fire people love fire. Just like you two are so compatible, because you both have earth. When I'm around fire people, they don't even notice that I'm blunt. They just think I'm kind of cute and funny.
Okay. I love that. So you can tell anyone who comes to a reading for you, like what their life lesson is and how to like kind of move through that. And then also like what their purpose is, because that was a big thing that you look at too in the chart.
My favorite conversation coming to this planet, to what Chad said, it's such a weird place. The mystic must be included to ask the hard question, like, why do we come down here? And what is the proper exercise about learning? Like, what's the message? What's the learning? And once you start answering those questions, said that I'm all headed towards 70 years old. It's so much easier. It's so liberating when you live in Switzerland and there's no judgments, and you neutralize whatever the life lesson is into gratitude. And once that formula is put in place, which is like, it's like being a little kid.
Yeah. So before we let Chad get into, this is my controlling energy coming through. See,
no, we need your controlling energy. That's the point.
Before we let him get into his question about 2023, speaking of life lessons, like, does astrology? I am thinking that this is the case, because I've heard that like Pisces is the last sign in the astrological zodiac. There are 12. Does astrology believe in reincarnation? Is that a thing? Like I am such a believer that like we come here, we create this karma, and then we are reincarnated into a new life. But like if I'm Pisces, does this mean like this is my last shot? Like, what does that look like?
No, you don't. No. So yes, every Pisces on the planet, you're done. No, it's not like that. You are. We all believe in reincarnation. Any astrologer knows that everything goes in seasons and everything goes in circles. Look at the sky. It's a complete circle. And so there is the awareness when the mind has a higher intelligence, when we're operating with the higher mind, not the lower mind. The lower mind can't figure that out at all. The lower mind's like, what? What do you mean we reincarnate? I can't remember being born or dying. What is this whole, like, what are you talking? But the higher mind goes, oh, no. I can see by this lifetime, I came in and learned astrology without ever having had a teacher. It was like I remembered it. Honestly, it would be like the kid that played piano when they were really little, and the mom and dad said, "Wait, we didn't give them a lesson. Why are they so good at that?" That's what happened to me with astrology. So clearly, in past lives, I've carried that memory. You can say that to any painter or singer or really good artisan. They've come in with a memory. Unfortunately, we can't remember that. It's so sad. Because wouldn't it be cool if we could all have a list of where we came from before, and they told us who our friends were and who our enemies were?
Yeah, but that's really fascinating. So I am a big believer in that.
What are your thoughts on deja vu? You don't think that's any sort of flashbacks in terms of a past life?
It's not a past life. It's a memory. I mean, I have deja vus. It is I totally believe in it. And it has to do with the mind. Back to my point. The higher mind sees things before they happen. That's what psychics do. They talk to dead people. They have the gift of prophecy. So when you're doing a deja vu, you're getting a glimpse of your higher mind, gave you a vision, reminded you of something. It's not a past life. It's more, it's future. Your mind is going into the future, capturing a moment. And then when it happens, you're like, I remember that. Yeah. I love when that happens. That's like my favorite. That's just it's just like saying 11:11 or 2:22 when people see these numbers and they're all so aware of it. That's called synchronicity. And that's all astrology is about, is paying attention to the cosmic. Every single day on Instagram and on YouTube, I have videos that come out that tell you where the moon is. So you start to become familiar with the rhythm, the cosmic rhythms, and you start to follow that. And the next thing you know, you're in sync, and then you're in the right place at the right time. It's one of my favorite things. I had this crazy story. I was in meditation, and I asked this, you'll love this, Kelley. I asked this question: if I were to die, is there anyone in my world that I have something unfinished with? And this person's name came into my awareness that I hadn't seen in 10 years. And I thought, well, that's weird. Later that day, for no unknown reason, I walked into Whole Foods, looked at the window and the door, and in comes that very person that I hadn't seen in 10 years. And I had just had the meditation. So I walked up to him and I said, this is going to be a weird conversation, but I had a meditation today, and I asked the question, was there anyone I had an out with? And he had divorced his wife, and I was their counselor, and he had blamed me for their divorce. And I said to him, please forgive me if you think it was my fault that your divorce happened. And by the way, I've watched your children being raised. You've done a brilliant job. And can I have a hug? And then he hugged me. And then I said to him, what are you doing here? Because he was standing with the tray at the salad bar. And he said, I don't know. And I said, me either. And I left. So that was a synchronistic opportunity to see magic occurring because I let myself, meditate. I heard the message, and then I had the courage to walk up to that guy, which was a little scary.
That's really, really cool. But I feel like the moments like that do happen, like as they're intended to. My point is, if you're in sync, why do I follow the moon? Why do I meditate every day? Because I want to be able to let spirit talk to me, and then I can hear its message, and then magic happens.
On a humanitarian level, or on humanity's level, rather, 2020 and 2021 were clearly challenging for most everyone, and so what was written in the stars in terms of those years, and how is that predicated, and then what do we have to look forward to in 23, etc.
So 2021 was astrologically, we were all so curious what would happen. There was a very strong Capricorn influence. Saturn was in Capricorn, Jupiter was in Aries, squaring it. Pluto was in Capricorn. Mars was in Aries. It was a very tense moment. We all wondered as astrologers what would happen when COVID hit. It was not a surprise that something would happen. We just never named it. And then 2022 has been like a relaxed year. Like, okay, we can just take a break, take a breath, recalibrate. But 2023, the energy picks up. So the good news is, one, our emotional bodies, the words anxiety and depression and tension when I was a kid, we didn't have the word anxiety. No one ever said I'm anxious, but now it's in the zeitgeist. And it's going to increase. And it's partially because the climate, which no one ever talks about anymore, but it's all over my podcast because I researched it so much. So we're in a very difficult time. The question is, how long does that last? Well, it gets even harder in 2025. From 2023 to 2025, there is an emotional discomfort. The good news is our energy is going to increase. So we've got Jupiter goes into Aries from January to May, which means that it's starting in the new year. There's a bunch of energy coming. It's not like quiet like it's been lately, kind of softer, less dramatic. Yes, there's a war in Russia. Yes, there's talk about the climate. It will get a stronger energy for you to feel like motivated. Really easy New Year's this year to make decisions and follow through. And then by the end of the year, things slow down from March and then April, May, June, when Jupiter goes into Taurus. We start to really feel like, what can we do? Here's the question of 2023 in the second half of the year. What can we do to create emotional stability? Because it's very scary what's about to happen. I mean, I don't know why no one talks about it. We're headed straight to a cataclysm, but we can't face it because our minds can't tolerate fear.
Yeah.
So what do? We go into denial. And here we go again with my life lesson. I don't want to get in trouble for telling the truth. I don't want to stick my foot in my mouth. But the short answer is emotional stability is the theme of 2023. What do you do to calm your nervous system? What do you do? Where's your energy to exercise and to know what you need to do? Everyone knows they have some people can't meditate. Some people don't like to exercise. Some people don't like to talk. This is what the missing element the book is. But you've got to cultivate that part of you that's lazy or ambivalent or lethargic, because in the beginning of 2023, the energy's up. And if you don't use it, it will use you by getting you frustrated. So first 6 months of 2023, ask yourself in your New Year's resolution, what can I do to up my energy? Because you'll be supported by Jupiter in Aries.
That's great. That's really great. So should people be looking to their own individual charts to understand how to harness the energy a little bit more?
Exactly. So you need to know what your style is. Like both of you are workaholics. So you need to know that's a good thing to know, that you use work to get relief. Other people would not understand what you're doing. Like, why is everything got to be scheduled? You're like, we love that.
We do love that.
And some people don't like it, and they find that and they can't do it. And your success will be because you've leaned into your earth. So yes, and by the way, I don't do readings, but I have 20 certified astrologers on my site that like for you, there's one astrologer who specializes in relationships, and she looks right at the dynamics. And then she says, here's what will work and what won't work. And it's very helpful.
Okay. So you have astrologers on your site who like specialize.
Have all been trained by me, and they have specialties.
Okay.
Some are about children. Some work with coaches. They want to help you get your business started. You just, if you write to Silverman Support at Gmail, we will do matchmaking. You have to pay for the session. It's $225, and then I will fix you up with the right astrologer.
I love that. That's great. I mean, we could do one on our kids too. We've got a Capricorn and an Aries.
Yeah, I'd love
Oh my goodness.
So
it's so important to know how to raise your kid. That is the most important thing you could do for your child.
Do you think that like raising them, because, you know, one is very earth, obviously the other one's fire, like you raise them differently based on their individualized needs?
Of course. And think about it. I always say, I wish my mom would have known astrology when I was a kid, how different my life would have been, because I have so much fire and I didn't know. No one encouraged me. Right. So then when I finally did my chart, I was like, no wonder I'm a cheerleader and I'm a gymnast and I'm a dancer and I keep running around and I'm on the bike and I play. Like it gave me permission to.
Right.
There's someone on our team that specializes in children and she's so good at it.
But there's like the sun sign, like we talked about at the very beginning, like really isn't everything. Like there could be so much more depth to their charts, and we can understand why West is our oldest is like more
insane,
fiery and insane.
Yeah.
And our younger one, who's the fire sign, is more sweet. And
yes, that's such a great example. That's why I don't always tell the sun signs, because there's so many factors. And that's why the book is so helpful, because you don't need to know anything. You just figure out your personality type. And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh my goodness. And people's lives change. It's so, you can imagine how much fun it is for me.
Yeah, for sure.
That people's lives change in level one. They finish level one and their husbands write me and say, thank God my wife is back. Like depression goes away. People start losing weight. They get motivated when you're giving back to yourself. It feels much more juicy in life when you're being authentic.
I cannot agree with you more. I think that is like the most beautiful statement, because I think that people get really lost and we let the world project so much onto us. And when we're not connected with self and like what our own lives are about, like it can be depressing. It can be anxiety inducing. And when you know who you are and like what you're about and what your values are and what's important to you, literally your whole life changes. So I think that's really amazing.
I know. And it makes, you can imagine how fulfilling. As an astrologer, I always say this, it sounds weird, but when you finish a session, it's like good sex. Like you just had this intimate conversation with someone about the deepest things that mattered the most to them. You fixed what it was that drove them crazy. And then they hang up and they go, I feel so good.
Yep,
Sounds
totally.
great.
So tell us a few things, like what are, you mentioned meditation. What are a few things that you do to like take care of yourself? Are you constantly looking at your chart? Is that one of the things that you do? Tell us a little bit.
It's so funny because I don't. It's like a
Really?
joke. Yeah, I only figured out, I don't look at my chart, but I do have very strong ritualistic. And I think some people have to meditate by moving. Meditation is such a bad word because it's so hard to do. One, it doesn't get results very quickly. Two, and you have to find your style. So for
100%.
me,
Yeah.
and I found out as a Gemini that I didn't have a very good attention span. So first I started with 5 minutes and I could do 5 minutes. And then I started to get off on it. Then I could do 10. And then I started, like years went by and I was like, I'm going to do half an hour. And that's when I hit my ceiling. I was like, wait a minute. Okay, I just hit the ceiling. But I've noticed such a radical difference to my point about that original story of I was in meditation. Sometimes I ask a question when I go into meditation and I just sit and I watch all the distractings. And then the answer came. And the answer was this man. And then he showed up that day. So meditation is a vehicle, but it's not easy. Some people really can't. Virgos particularly, it makes them nervous to be too still for too long. They wiggle.
Yeah.
And so then you do a moving meditation. So then for me, I bike ride every day and I love it so much when I enter into that state where I can feel my mind is in its seat. And I teach this in all of our schools about putting the mental body, your ego, in a seat and say, you sit down. And then it goes, oh, you mean I'm not in charge?
I think that's really powerful too. It's like almost like every different, element type has probably a different way that they're going to take care of themselves. And it gives people permission to be like, wait, this person that I'm seeing on Instagram is meditating and doing Pilates. That doesn't work for me. I'm describing myself. Like if somebody can say, okay, well then like going bike ride, like cycling and breath work might be better for me, or like whatever
air.
it is.
You just named it. That was water, air. Exactly right.
It's ego. If you forget your ego and you follow, what your body and your mind are telling you and ignore the rest, you'll probably find yourself in the right place, right?
Bingo. 100%. Just the body. I would stick with the body, not the mind. Just keep your body close to you and really practice listening.
With your intuition.
What is my body saying? Yeah.
Mind will pull you in 1,000 directions. So I'm curious. There's that famous picture from the Hubble a few years ago, and they're finding all those universes out there. Like, how is our increased understanding of galaxies far, far away changing the field, if at all? Because I've heard you talk a lot about, the planets in the Milky Way, but like, what about everything else out there? And answer the greatest question of all: are we alone?
You're definitely not alone. If you watch my podcast, I interviewed Dr. Stephen Greer. He is the world expert on UFOs. We're not alone. It's arrogant. I can't believe 100%. Anyone would think. And if this is the highest road for the species, I'm a little scared about what's out there.
Me too.
Yeah, but this is the low road. We are in kindergarten. So the good news is it's a beautiful kindergarten, and it has so many milk and cookies, and we get to play and we get to make friends. But the quality of consciousness that's leading us down here in our government, we won't talk about that because we only have a minute left. The short answer is yes, there are many others, but this system, based on these 10 planets inside of our Milky Way, inside of this galaxy, airtight astrology is absolutely impeccable. I'm proud to say that I have a boss called the sun who is predictable every single day across all time. We have known where the sun will be, where the moon will be. They never deviate. And even when Mercury goes retrograde, as many of the planets do, it's completely clockwork. So it's very stabilizing. It's very comforting to know that astrology is this old, this stable, and deserves our attention.
So we really appreciate your time. We know you're a very busy woman. I know we have a minute left. So let's tell everybody where they can find you. Tell them about your podcast, what your school is called, where they can sign up if they want to get a reading, all of the things.
You're the best. Okay. Debra Silverman Astrology is my Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. The doors open in January. The class starts in February. It happens twice a year, in the winter and in the fall. That's when the doors open. There's a challenge coming up where I'm giving away a month free, interviewing people like Aaron Rodgers, like people like Danielle Laporte, India Reed. We have some very famous people who have been in my school who really love my work. And they found their charts and they're doing astrology. It's the coolest thing. So you can just sign up on, on my mailing list or my Instagram, and you'll get the information about this whole month long. I think it's it's the end of January, the beginning of February is when we do the immersion. So please sign up, because there's the most interesting characters going to show up.
Awesome. And then your podcast is what?
I don't believe in astrology.
I don't believe in astrology.
Perfect. We're going to link everything for our listeners, and I know there will be so many of them, my clients included, who are going to go want to book a reading. So thank you so much, Debra. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Kelley and Chad. I see your love, and I'm just honored to be in the presence and to celebrate the quality of your power and inviting people to think, to open their minds, to do the life's work, to make this planet more beautiful. I wish you could see what I'm looking at. It's the most beautiful morning in Hawaii.
Always a beautiful morning.
We're in a
Hawaii.
freezing cold room in Vegas, so we'd love that too.
Okay, I'm sending you aloha. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Debra.
We really hope that you enjoyed that episode. You can follow me on Instagram at Wellness by Kelley. And if you're new around here, you can sign up for the WBK 7-day free trial, where you can get access to all of my low impact workouts, blood sugar balancing, plant-based recipes, and guided meditations, all available on wellnessbykelly.com and on the WBK app.
Hey, thanks for listening.
Please make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also connect with us on social media at Wellness by Kelley. Drop us a DM for who you want to hear from.